Welcome back, and in the wise words of Andy, what's up, you soccer nerds? Hope you guys are doing well. It has been one heck of a week in the USL. It's been one heck of a week in the world. Um, Between whatever is happening, overseas, and Chris Rock got slapped. There, I mentioned it, never being brought up again. It's done. I'm sure there'll be a joke along the way, but that we're not here for any of that. Okay, I was kind of here for the Chris. Anyway, we're here to talk some USL, talk about a little bit of League One, the championship. Maybe we might touch an Open Cup conversation, but we'll for sure be on that next week. But I got to hear from you guys. Ryan, my man, how you doing?
I'm doing well. In honor of League One starting this year, I'm wearing my Forward Madison kit, so doing well. Looking forward to just having more USL action going on.
Alan.
My day is going much better than at Will Smith on Twitter has been, who is not the Will Smith, but a Will Smith. I'm sure he has been getting quite the replies and mentions. So I guess he's like a co-host of Brad and Will made a tech pod. So there you go. Shout out to him for getting all sorts of online abuse for being a white nerdy guy who likes to talk about tech instead of a mega movie star.
I mean, business has to be booming to have a generic name right now. Whenever another Kaylor Hodges gets slapped at a Grammy or an Oscars, then I know my career's on the up and up. John, how you doing?
Doing all right. I feel like every weekend I publish a power ranking or a playoff odds thing, I'm Chris Rock, and then the collective Orange County fan base is Will Smith just coming to slap me. So reeling off of that.
Oh, man. In the wise words of Nicholas Murray, you shouldn't pay attention to this. Man, power rankings, if you haven't figured it out, just like preseason, power rankings mean everything, and you win the cup every single week, depending on how you do in preseason and how you finish in the power rankings. Legion have slowly been falling. I'll let John. I'll just watch the USL Tactics show again and be sad. We're going to start off with a little bit of serious stuff, and then we'll get into the more fun stuff later. Today, Monterey Bay and USL HQ all came out with statements regarding Hugh Roberts receiving racial abuse online. If you didn't know, Roberts has been just one of the biggest activists out there ever. I believe he is the USL Black Players was it Alliance? I know it's an A.
No, Alliance, you have it.
It is Alliance. Okay, I didn't believe it myself. He is the president of that, and he's been pretty much the face of that for a while now. And he was targeted on social media after the match, after probably one of the highlights of his career, scoring a game winner in the first ever win for a club. I don't know where to start with this, and I don't know how to talk about it. So I just want to open it up to you guys, whichever one you wants to talk about it first.
Yeah, I can go ahead. I think I've talked a little bit with like Brandon Miller and a couple of other people who were involved with the Black Player Alliance over the course of the past year or two. And the work that they do within the context of the league and the broader soccer community in this country in terms of acceptance and making people feel like they belong in the community of soccer in this country is so vital. And to see, as you mentioned, Hugh Roberts coming off of such a huge moment, facing this kind of pure ignorance and venom is just disgusting to see, really. I think the league and Roberts and Monterey have handled it as well as they could, but there's nothing that you can do to change the minds of some people who just want to live with this amount of ignorance, and it's really tragic.
And even then, you shouldn't be sending any of this stuff in any context for any reason and online. And it's a really bad thing to just send abuse to a player after a game. And that in the end, this is just a game. It's a sport, and there shouldn't be any reason to do this.
It's particularly troublesome knowing like who the opponent was and what that team stands for. Like, not that Oakland is responsible in any way for the output, but I think we've been seeing this a lot of teams and what they stand for versus supporters and what they stand for. It's an ongoing conversation. It reminds me that sports isn't like just this escapism thing. Like, sports is politics and politics is sports, and all of those things combined, especially. And then for Hugh Roberts, like, Hugh Roberts is like the USL, right? Like, he's, one of the most recognizable names and faces that have been in the league for a long time. I think like on the website it says top 20 all time in minutes played. Like, he is one of those guys that has proven himself in the USL, and was one of the reasons why when Charlotte was going through all the crap that they were going through with their owner, like, it was the reason why people still rooted for Charlotte, was guys like Hugh Roberts were on the team and the work that he was doing. And it was creating this very confusing, you're supporting one person, but you're supporting another, and gray area weirdness that, our friend Goose was getting in, it was right in the middle of. And it's really gross to see him face this, but this is nothing new. This is, I think I sent out a questionnaire through the Black Players Alliance talking about like, when was the first time you experienced racialized abuse on a soccer pitch? And it was shocking how young a lot of these athletes are. And it's gross that it's continuing to happen. It is nice that the team acknowledged it quickly and were able to put something out. Like, I tried to find some stuff, but I didn't have any luck skimming through anything. But you would hope that people call it out and know these people, and there's repercussions for those fans who feel like they have the right to abuse players because they bought a ticket to a match or they watched it on ESPN Plus and their fifis got hurt that their team lost. It's the same. It's, the guys who are throwing water bottles or, again, meat pies. But I think this is one step further where it's like your vitriol is hurtful on purpose. Big hugs to Hugh Roberts. I know that this is nothing new for him, but you hope that there's at least one moment where this doesn't happen. And this is what we talked about before, in the before times, of what is the league doing to put things in place that the repercussions are clear and they follow through is clear.
The thing that always kind of put it into perspective for me, and I've never really had the idea of doing this, right? But the idea of like bantering with somebody, I mean, banter across sports, but like, it's something that's really celebrated in the soccer world. I mean, the bants is always up there. And, there's always a way of going about that. There's friendly ways of sending some banter to fans or even sometimes players. But most of the time, almost all the time, if you're going to banter with somebody, you don't do it in DMs. That makes it personal, but also the way I've thought about it is that, like, whether it's a player who's a minority, whether it's because of racial or gender or sexuality, or if it's like an NWSL match or whatever, shouting something at them, saying something to them, whether it's in person or it's a DM, I mean, just to be honest, a lot of the people who go to these matches, almost all of them have jobs. Could you imagine if someone just came in who was essentially paying you like a boss, started throwing abuse at you, saying awful things about you personally, not even just you're bad at your job. Most people would be upset at that, but real degrading comments of stuff that you can't handle, like you can't control. If someone who was in a position like a boss or anyone came into your workplace, you would be distraught, you'd be hurt. And people will claim the difference is that they're here for our entertainment, but this is a job. I get that it's a game for, for us. It is a game. It's a kid's game, and I understand that, but for them, this is their livelihood. Don't go to their job, or even whenever, even worse, not even worse, but just as bad as when they're at home relaxing from a hard day's work and they get a call or a text from their boss saying degrading things. Just don't do that. And if, granted, most of the people who watch this, they've never had that thought, but if you have friends or if you know people growing up that were like, who would do these things, send them the first like 10 minutes of this podcast and really ask them, are you okay with this? And you think this is okay? It's always one of those things of, if you better be able to take it if you're trying to serve it out, which most people can't. And that's why they resort to do it behind the keyboard. So, man, anybody else want to give any final thoughts before we move on? All right. Something a little bit happier. There's no good way to transition out of this. Let's just talk about the week that was. The USL Championship. This is the last week that we go without League One. Super exciting. A bunch of Open Cup stuff, which I do want to talk a little bit about the League Two Open Cup match that's being replayed. Just a minute. Okay. Ryan, Alan, or John, you guys have been in the depths of soccer for a long time. Has anybody else heard of a temporary sub before? Ever?
I know in college soccer, you can sub players out and then sub them back in, but that's just an NCAA rule where they have really changed how the game is played for college soccer versus pro.
What a weird situation. I mean, okay, so if you don't understand, by the way, if you didn't watch, FC Motown lost the match. Actually, I was watching the match during the USL show last week. And FC Motown lost in extra time after losing a 2-0 lead to Westchester United SC. A couple of days afterwards, Motown puts out a what's it called? A protest of the match, claiming that a temporary sub was used, an illegal temporary sub. So apparently, what they're saying happened was a player went in for an injured player, which is normal. Typically, when a player's hurt, they get subbed out. But later on, the player was okay, and they just put him back in and took the other guy out. In which the U.S. Soccer Federation was like, that's not cool. Why did that happen? We're going to replay the entire match. Folks, I'm going to start with John. Have you seen this happen before?
I mean, I'm probably not as much of an expert with this sort of thing as Ryan would be, but certainly not, like, having followed the chaos that is U.S. soccer, I'm not surprised too badly by it. At the same time, like, you just have to laugh at a certain point because it's so out there, and the way it's been adjudicated is so out there. It's just bizarre.
Ryan,
I'm trying to do some searching because I've recalled we've had Open Cup games in the past that have been walkovers or replays. There's one distinct one in mind when it was the Charleston Battery. I think it was 2016. I'm trying to search. They lost to a team, the Villages, actually, and they actually like formally lost the game, but then was given a walkover to the next round because the Villages had played an ineligible player. So we've had like instances of that in the past, but I don't think we've seen. It's been a while since we've seen full replays of games.
Yeah. So I asked if it was a concussion sub, and like this leads me to believe that there is some soccer level out there that allows you to pull a guy off for concussion for a specified amount of time, and if he's cleared, you can put him back on the pitch. And then the fourth official was like, "Yeah, I did this in the like before, like maybe in a different league that allowed that," and then was like, "All right, he's fine, he's cleared, he can go back in." But it is wild to think that the way it seemed, it was like the fourth official okayed it, but there was a question about the number of subs used in matches before, and it's like I've been told that it's not the fourth official's job to really monitor how many subs you put in, but to like put a player who's been subbed off back on again, like it's wild to me that was allowed to happen. And then with Caleb's point of replaying the entire match and not just from that point on, like that was the other part that was just like, what? They're going to replay as opposed to we're going to start like in baseball where you protest, right? You play the game under protest and then you finish. If you win your protest, you start where the protest happened and go on from there, because what happened before was all fine and dandy. It's wild to me that they're going to have them replay the entire match as opposed to just where the infraction happened to the end, which seems to be the more logical step, right? Hey, this happened. This is messed up. The rest of the game prior to this was played fine within the laws of the game. I almost said rules, and then all of the soccer nerds out there would have come after me. They're called laws of the game, Underwood. Sorry, laws of the game. It's wild to me that that's happening. I think that was the most shocking part to me.
If I remember correctly, the match was tied. So it's not like they could even say, well, one team was winning. We don't know if that'd be fair or whatever. The match was tied. Oh, U.S. soccer. The magic of the cup. Am I right? John, you have any last thoughts on this, man?
I don't. I really do just love the Open Cup, though.
Well, let's go ahead and start with you. What was your biggest I told you so of the weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to extend it over the course of kind of the entire week and just point to the hot streak of Danny Trejo in Las Vegas when I did my like young players week over the off season and was trying to highlight some younger guys who I thought might be breakouts. He was one of the first names I looked to. And then he went off for 3 goals and 3 assists in the past 7 days. So I feel pretty vindicated there. Obviously, they dropped their game against Memphis over the weekend, but he's been just dynamite, sort of playing this like left wing role, connecting well with Cal Jennings, basically scoring for fun at this point. So yeah, he's just dynamite, and I feel good for having called that out slightly before the breakout.
Alan, what was your biggest I told you so?
Oh, my biggest I told you so. That Tulsa lost on Sunday, so they can stop calling me out. No, I'm just kidding. Spoilers, I'm not picking them this week on purpose. I don't know. I had terrible, like nothing I thought was going to happen happened. So I don't have an I told you so again, because I think I got like 0. I think I might got a negative points this week as far as picks. Like
you got 0 points. It was only Gio and Phil who got negative points. Taylor was the high scorer with 7. John and I had 1.
Yeah, so
there's really not an I told you so for a lot of our predictions this week.
I mean, I guess like maybe the Phoenix San Diego, it was going to be a tough match. It was really well played. It was really enjoyable to watch. I thought that game had everything you wanted to have from a San Diego Phoenix perspective. San Diego going up early like normal. Phoenix storming back like normal. Some amazing goals on both sides. Like Aiden Quinn, I just have nothing but love for that guy's left foot and the way he can put balls into the box. That was kind of, I thought Phoenix was gonna be able to, once they scored twice, I was like, okay, like San Diego's tired. They're just gonna try to hold on for a draw here. Phoenix is probably gonna get, you know, a goal in the 18th minute of stoppage time, and they're gonna walk off with a win, and they didn't. So maybe a little bit not I told you so, but like this is what you want from that match. That's kind of my told you so ish. Although I picked a draw, they were really close.
Ryan?
I guess I picked a draw for Loudoun and the Miami FC alongside Phil and John. So I thought that was pretty solid that Loudoun continues to at least kind of grind out results and got the just got the point that they needed. I know we're gonna move into the next biggest miss of the week, and I will say I do want to admit with the Oakland Monterey Bay last episode, I'd said this might be our first 0-0 result of the year, and it ended up being a 3-2 score line. So I do. And one of the more high-scoring games of the weekend, so I do admit that I completely missed that one.
Hey, just on that real quick, I tweeted out that there might not be a more uninteresting matchup in the league right before that started, and then I deleted it because, you know, I should try to be classy, and got multiple like texts and DMs from people who are actually employed in the USL, like saying, "Yeah, this is just awful. I don't know why anyone would watch this," which was heartening to see, but also a little bit disrespectful.
And it turns out that Miami and Loudoun was the first 0-0 of the season.
Right.
I did say, and this is kind of an I told you so. I guess screw it. I was the only one above like 5 points, so I get to have 2. Dang it. I make the rules. I'm the host. I guess I did say that Monterey was going to win, and I said that both defenses were just like not good enough to hold 0-0 for the entire match. So I'm going to take that as a dub. But this is kind of a season long. I told you so, and I said at the beginning of the year, and I got a little bit of pushback for it. But I said LaCava was going to be the MVP for Tampa Bay, and I know that it's early, and I know that there are players with higher like. What I can't even think of the word. Basically, held in higher regard than Jake LaCava. But so far through 3 matches, I've been right. He has been their team MVP so far, at least in my opinion. Dude's been unreal. I mean, his passing, great. His shooting, pretty good. I mean, his finishing, maybe not perfect, but I mean, if you're in the USL, is your finishing perfect? There's a reason chances that you're sitting in the 2nd division. That sounds harsh, but nobody's going to be perfect with the finish at this level. Jake's pretty dang close. And coming out of Red Bulls, I mean, man knows how to press, and that's all Tampa Bay is doing this year. They are just asserting their dominance when it comes to pressing people. Biggest shocker of the week. Let's do reverse order, Ryan.
I'll go with the fact that Hartford was able to just get a result out of Tampa Bay. They scored a goal early, and it was quite a good goal to start within the XG. They only had 0.26 on that game as per American Soccer Analysis, but they weren't they were outshot for most of that match, but to walk away with a point I thought was a pretty surprising result.
Alan?
My shocker of the week is, I mean, with there being a lot of firsts in USL Championship this week, that Monterey Bay went on the road into Oakland and scored 3 goals. Big shout out to fellow University of Redlands alum Chase Boone, not only getting a goal in the match, but also keeping 5 minutes of a clean sheet to finish up the match. It's not often that you have your strong attacker from the match dropping back, putting on gloves, and finishing up the game as a keeper. So I think that's kind of my biggest shock. I know it's, again, not the most exciting game to talk about, but when someone comes from a small liberal arts college in the middle of the Inland Empire in California and makes team of the week, you got to give them some love on the podcast, right?
Yep.
I think the other one was Tulsa's social media account was the other big shock to get that notification. So it was fun. I appreciate you, Tulsa.
I won't lie, because it first showed up through them adding the USL account, and it popped up on my phone, and I was like, "Oh God, we're getting flamed by Tulsa." I know what it's like to be every other USL social media person. John, what was your biggest shock?
How very, very good Detroit looked in the second half against Pittsburgh. And I think part of it was the rotated Pittsburgh squad, but you do really have to point to the adjustments that Detroit made, pushing their wing backs high, really asserting themselves against one of the better sides in the East. I still don't know if they're a playoff team, but they're going to be in the mix. They're very, very solid, and I think this proved it.
And that game was a true tale of two halves. At halftime, with Pittsburgh up 1-0, it was 7-1 from Detroit, and then it was completely flipped by the time they got to full time. It was 8-8 in shot counts. It was really, truly a great halftime adjustment, like you had mentioned, John.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction of Detroit being a borderline playoff team is looking better and better every single week. My biggest shock, maybe I just overhyped them, and maybe this wasn't really a prediction, but was I wrong about the battery?
The red card hurt him.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, I'm not gonna lie. I did sort of change my tune on the battery preseason after Brandon Miller told me that I was wrong and dumb. Well, screw you, Brandon. I was right. They're not that good. But then after he said that, I started doing more research. I'm like, yeah, battery are going to be pretty good. And then what's happening?
So I numerically had them predicted second worst in the East, and I didn't think they were going to be particularly good, but that seemed low. And that's pretty much what they're looking like right now. Like, yeah, Atlanta, granted, got a bunch of loanees with MLS experience because that's what Atlanta does. But they played them off the pitch, and certainly after that red card, it's just disheartening to see because this Charleston team has a lot of talent, and they're really not using it.
It's so hard to figure out what's going on there. And I do want to talk a little bit about, I guess some of the two sides. Red Bulls 2 are just kind of doing Red Bulls 2 thing. I mean, they're not what they used to be, but it's still the same ideas going on. Atlanta United 2, I really like what they do, but I also kind of hate it because, I mean, they do have guys that I'm more or less mad at them because of their MLS squad, because they have guys that should be playing in MLS that are sitting in academy, and I still don't understand why. But I don't know. I mean, I feel like Atlanta United 2 always has one of these matches where they just show up. I mean, usually it always feels like it's against Loose City. I don't think they've ever actually got a real result against Loose City, but I feel like they always play them well. But what was this? It was 4-1, right? That's shocking. That is ridiculously shocking. They beat Tulsa last year 5-0, right?
Yeah, that was the fourth game of the year.
Yeah, and everybody was like, oh, wait a minute. Atlanta United 2 is good, and then they regressed to the means. But then Tulsa was also actually good. I don't know. I don't know what to make of them.
They had speaking of Atlanta United 2, they had a 6-2 win over Indy 11 last season. But of getting back to the mean, by the end of the year, they lost 4-0 to Birmingham and 4-0 to Tulsa. In between that time, they did have a 1-1 result with Louisville.
Two teams. Yeah, I don't know. This is definitely it's definitely weird seeing a lot of those two teams and just how they act, I guess, with their squads. Whether they're willing to just send people up and down, just whatever. But it's always a interesting conversation. Let's talk about some of the matches from last week. And I want to start with partially because I'm a fan of one of the teams, but also because John just did a USL Tactics on the Switchbacks. I do want to talk about that match because I feel like for a lot of people who were outside of the Legion space, this was a shocking result. For me personally, it wasn't whatsoever, but I feel like for a lot of people, they thought this was a pretty shocking result to see Legion lose 2-0. I'm going to start off with John because you have the video on it.
Yeah, I think what's impressed me the most about Colorado Springs is the way that they came in year one of the Burke era last season, and you had the pressing identity. They were statistically the most aggressive pressing team in the USL, but you relied a lot on Haji Berry's offense, and there were the nascent hints of Galena really being a beast on the counterattack, that sort of thing. But the way that they added, bringing in Malik Johnson as that sort of combination right winger, right back. Cam Lindley is more of a creative presence in the middle, solidifying the back line, and Jeff Caldwell in goal. Everything they did took that system and made it work to a whole nother degree. So they are just pressing like dynamite in the middle of the pitch. Haji Berry doesn't have that scoring load anymore with Elvis Samo up top, and he's been liberated to drop deep and really be a creator where he's every bit as strong as he was when he's going and winning the Golden Boot. They're a scary side right now, and Birmingham played them well for a lot of the match, and I think that some mistakes cost Birmingham at the end of the day. But this is a Switchbacks team that you really have to look out for because they have a clear idea of how they want to play, and they're armed to do it.
I'm going to toss it over. But yeah, I do agree that I think for a lot of the match, Legion handled them well. But this is always armchair coach conversation, right? But I feel like to me, what lost, I think I agreed that Coach Stone needed to make subs. I feel like he just made the wrong subs, like not necessarily even the wrong people coming in, but the wrong people coming in for certain players. Like the moment that we took Bruno Lop out, it felt like we lost all momentum. I know Marlon didn't have a great game, but he was also one of the few players that were making plays. Eddie Horvat, I know John wasn't overly impressed, but considering the fact that he was the only one even getting close to like shooting the ball, I was impressed. And then we took him out. It was like, what are we doing? And then the players he brought in were good players, quality players, but it felt like they weren't the right players to win that match against Switchbacks. Sometimes it's not about how good a player is, it's about their skill sets. Kind of looking at that, Ryan, I mean, you've kind of dropped in some nuggets of stat stuff about the match itself. If you want to drop those in.
Yeah, and Caleb and Chad had also mentioned that they had 14 shots and 8 corners in the first half, which was very impressive. If you're looking at some of the XG from the game, that was 1.62 for Colorado Springs to 0.67 for Birmingham. But I was looking back at a few previous seasons just to show the improvement the Switchbacks have had this year. They already have back-to-back shutouts, and that was something they weren't able to achieve within 2021. And in 2021, there were only 2 separate occurrences where they won back-to-back games. That was at the start of the year when they won 3 in a row from Tacoma, Austin, and New Mexico. And then towards the end of the year when they beat RGV and Austin again in consecutive games.
Talking about other results and someone kind of mentioned it was Phoenix, just not getting the wins. But I mean, Alan, your Loyal were they got the win. It was convincing until it wasn't, and then suddenly it was in true Loyal fashion.
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that are true about this match. Phoenix is not clicking the way that Phoenix normally clicks, especially defensively. They still have lots of offensive power, but it's always been the back half that has undone Phoenix at times. And on top of that, I think both coaching staffs really understand what the other is trying to do. So it's a really exciting, explosive chess match as opposed to that 0-0, like trying to figure each other out. They know exactly what they're doing and they know exactly how to exploit those weaknesses. I really like the 4-4-2 with Among and Vassell up top. That was a different look and one that we really haven't seen from Loyal that way before. Two really strong, aggressive strikers, and then you put, I mean, you had Nick Moon playing right back after Metcalf goes out, which adds a wrinkle to that position. You know, Metcalf is usually more offensive than defensive anyway, but now you have essentially a left or a right wing back than a pure more of a defensive right back. I thought, young Conway looked really, really positive as well. It was just one of those. I think this is the way Phoenix and San Diego are always going to be. I think every game is going to be skin of the teeth. It's going to be two teams that really want to duke it out. And I think this is what's fun about the USL is you can have these teams exist in the same league where you have Lily Ball and you have these different philosophical approaches, and they go toe to toe. And Phoenix, San Diego is one that I think both teams kind of dislike each other, but also like respect each other in a way of like, we're going to go and try to dominate, and Phoenix is going to go and try and dominate. And there's going to be ebb and flow, and it's kind of which team can muscle the momentum back, because Loyal are going to score, Phoenix is going to score, and you just have to ride those waves and fight back against that momentum. And it was a wild match, roller coaster as it is, but we've seen this before, right? This is like the Rubin game where he scores the hat trick. San Diego likes playing Phoenix because I think the coaching staff understands what Rick Schantz is trying to do, and it's going to be like countering and then countering and then countering and then second half adjustments, which they did a pretty good job. And it was a wild one. Phoenix has dropped some points, but we've seen Lou City do this in the past, right? Where they have hit some snags here and there, and then by the end of the season, they're winning their division again. And you're like, oh, well, duh. So I have a lot of faith that Phoenix will figure this out, and we won't have to, like, there'll be a couple weeks in the future where we're like, hey, remember when Phoenix was having some struggles? I think they're going to figure it out. But right now, San Antonio and Colorado Springs, the only two teams in the USL who have yet to drop points. I think Colorado Springs may be a little bit more convincing than San Antonio. But nonetheless, like, you got to give a lot of respect to Bethlehem Steel West and what they've been trying to do. Shout out to Evan Villela. It was a fun one.
If you want to have an interesting stat from this one, this is the first time that Phoenix has lost back-to-back USL Championship League games since the end of the 2018 season, when they lost to Las Vegas 2-5 and Portland 1-0 in the 33rd and 34th game of that year.
So which do you think was a bigger, like, smack in the mouth for people? Was it Guido's goal to God, you already know where I'm going with this, to Phoenix, or was it, old Will Smith there? Haha, very funny.
Guido was absolutely unreal in this game, by the way. Like, he's, for me, the MVP of the season so far, and that's all I got to say on him.
Yeah, there's some concerns. I don't think Guido has played a full season for any team ever. So you ride this hot hand while you can. I like him better in the middle. I think he's been out in the wings, and I think he gets frustrated when he's out in the wings. I don't think that's his strength. But when he is driving at a defensive line from kind of that 10 position or 8 position, depending on however you want to define it, he is so confident, and he gives 0 Fs to any defender when he's driving the ball forward. And I think that's a strength. I hate seeing him on the wings. But then again, he finds his way over there due to some rotations, but like when he's in that middle of the pitch, he's lights out. And hopefully for him, he stays healthy. This shows why he played and was successful in Liga MX. This is why he was getting looked at LAFC. There's MLS talent there. He just hasn't been able to put together a string of play to be able to consistently show that he has that in him.
While you guys are trying to talk soccer, I've been trying to bring up, Hollywood's trash, who has been looking for headlines, I guess. But instead, I want to bring it over to LA's trash that is looking for headlines. Let's talk about Las Vegas Lights. So, get it, haha. They're MLS 2 team. Slap on the knee. What a weird. The second half of the El Paso match, where both teams decide that defense is for losers, and then the next match they go on to play Memphis for the Elvis Trophy, the Golden Elvis, whatever that was, and then Las Vegas Lights was like, oh yeah, we don't want to score anymore, we don't like that. And then they lose 1-0. It was such. This is just the Vegas. I don't know what else to say. Like, they go from scoring 5 goals and a half to not even looking really dangerous. Does anybody else want to just talk about that? The difference between two matches?
I think Las Vegas is a team that takes what you give them. El Paso went into that match and that second half specifically with a lot to prove, and the new regime coming in, trying to project this very offensive brand of soccer. I know, listening to a lot of the interviews that Phil had done with Hutchinson in the offseason, the real emphasis was on trying to play a positive game and really show off for the fans at El Paso. So when you go and do that against the Las Vegas team that's designed to turn you over in the midfield and break through Trejo, break through Cal Jennings, you're inviting a disaster, especially when you have a back line that's playing like El Paso is right now. So then by contrast, Memphis played a very conservative game. They were going to keep their fullbacks deep. They were going to build through Aaron Malloy, who you can't win a ball off of in the middle of the field. And that approach, by contrast, was designed to kind of go against everything that makes Las Vegas the threat that they can be. So I think we learned a lot about what can set up Vegas for success in these games, and the fact that they're probably going to be a fun watch no matter what.
And Vegas is always an entertaining team to watch. Anyways, they'll have these like stretches of games where they lose a bunch in there, but then they'll like shock you with a few like really just random results. Like I think I found it from last season. They had 2 games in the middle of the year where they drew Orange County, they beat Orange County 3-1, and then drew Phoenix 2-2, and then they lost like their next 8 games in a row.
I do want to talk a little bit about Andy's comment about the El Paso fans booing keeper Evan Newton. I just want to bring this up a little bit, right? And I really wish Phil was on here. Phil's off we never even talked about that. Phil's off doing business trip, and Gio was running a 103-degree fever. So, they're doing their thing right now. Hopefully Gio's sleeping right now. But to me, what I've seen is, El Paso fans are frustrated, obviously, with the keeper. But maybe this is something that John or even both of you or both Ryan and Alan can talk on too. But to me, it feels like it's on Hutchinson some. I mean, he knows that Evan Newton is not a sweeper keeper, and he continues to try to play him as one. He continues to just say, go do it, just go play it. But that's never been his style. It just feels very confusing to me that Hutchinson would continue to push this system on when that doesn't fit his keeper. If it's not like some other players where I think you can fake it, I feel like you cannot fake being a sweeper keeper or not. You either do or you don't. And there's nothing wrong with not being able to, because not everybody can. I mean, CJ Cochran is a significantly better sweeper keeper to me. than Evan Lauro. Am I going to say that Evan Lauro was a worse goalkeeper than CJ Cochran? No. They're just different, and I don't know why Hutchinson continues to put him in that position. It just feels entirely unfair to him. Am I crazy here?
Yeah, if you think about what Newton did in terms of his performance in Indianapolis, he was always bottom quarter-ish of goalkeepers in terms of the clearances and defensive actions. So it wasn't something he was asked to do in those scenarios. That said, he doesn't not have the skill set. Like, I think he can do enough, because in the tape I went back and watched when the Hutchinson hiring happened, his Tacoma sides weren't really asking for a full-blown sweeper keeper. A lot of the issue so far has been the fact that the center backs have been completely atrocious. They've been integrating new players that they just brought in. They've not leaned into Yuma much, which I think is a pretty bizarre decision. And the results have been pretty shambolic across the board in all of these games. To blame Newton, who's new to the city and new to the system, when he's like a third of the issue at most, seems really short-sighted on the part of the fans. And as someone who kind of loves Newton from his time in Indy, it's really disappointing to see.
So we're going to go ahead and move on to League One a little bit. This is our first week of League One action. If you want to hear a full breakdown of everything, League One, Walking 90 is always great, but we have a whole 2-hour super show from yesterday. It was supposed to be the short show. We don't do that, apparently. It was really good stuff. I've watched all of it. It's great. There's a lot of interesting matches going on this week. The big ones, I think that people should especially, I'm just going to name all of them because they're only 4 happening on Saturday. I'm about to pull up to make sure I'm not wrong on that, but I know Greenville's taking on Fuego, who Fuego have some players, man, for championship folks. I mean, Bijev is going to be starring for them. Quality player there. Greenville has been the model of consistency for League One. You have Richmond Kickers going against FC Tucson, which we got to help premiere FC Tucson's kits this year. Today, if you saw on Twitter, we helped debut them. So that was cool. Tucson was a really good team last year versus a Richmond Kickers team, which is largely unchanged from last year. So we're going to see if League One is getting better or worse, depending on how they perform, because they are basically the same squad. You have South Georgia Tormenta versus North Carolina. North Carolina, who has pretty much retooled a bunch of youth that has grown up now, where they finished with 1 win last year, to seeing if they have improved as time goes on, because they pretty much played only academy folks, versus South Georgia Tormenta, who they sold almost or just over $1 million in transfer fees this year. That's what's being reported. That's ridiculous. And then you have finally the one that I'm especially keeping my eye on is the Chattanooga Red Wolves versus Forward Madison. This one is pretty big because last year, to end the regular season, these two teams faced off and got into a pretty major altercation due to alleged words of derogatory words being said toward a Red Wolves player. Granted, a lot of those characters are no longer with the Forward Madison squad, but it'll be very, very interesting to see if that bad blood is still sitting there. For you guys, what's some storylines that you possibly are looking at for League One, whether it's this season or just this week?
Just how some of the new teams entering the league can adjust. Fuego, as we've discussed, has built a very good roster entering this year, and you also have Northern Colorado entering as well. So just seeing how good some of the newcomers can, especially since this is a team that was basically preparing for a normal season when a lot of some of the teams previously had to go through a pandemic year or had to have such an adjustment. I think it'll be interesting to see their first entries.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I
go
think
ahead.
the other again, we've talked about this with Union Omaha GM. So like, what are they going to look like? Can they repeat? Can Greenville Triumph reclaim their title? Although it wasn't a title decided on the pitch, but can they reclaim their title? So like, as the new teams come in, can the old stalwarts continue their dominance, or is this going to be a year where maybe an expansion team comes in and really dominates and might shock some folks with a first year championship, a la was that Sacramento that did that. So yeah, so I am excited to pay a little bit more attention to League One, especially with the large number of guys moving up, and I think that's the big question is who's that star or stars that are gonna to show up in League One that will be the future stars of the championship the year after.
Okay, I do want to talk about Russell's comment that just came up. It was about the Fuego kit reveal. I'm all about it. I love having the public kit reveals. There was just something about seeing it hosted at Dave & Buster's that was just so lower league soccer that it made my heart happy. They just rolled out. They said, "Here we are at Dave & Buster's. Here are our kits." That cracked me up. It shouldn't have made me laugh, but it did.
You keep Dave & Buster's out your damn mouth.
Listen, I'm a Chuck E. Cheese kid at heart. Nothing better than me playing what was it, Deal or No Deal at Chuck E. Cheese and just racking up those tickets. Those inflatable air guitars, they were all mine. Let's go ahead and move on to our predictions for the week. We do have some League One, so we're going to add that in. It's going to stay to 10 matches unless we have more than 10 matches that just really appeal to the eye. But we're going to go ahead and start with that. So starting with Ryan, let's start off with the Battery versus the Vegas Lights.
I backed a draw for this one, but it would not surprise me to see Charleston struggle again in this one with a very Las Vegas team that can definitely have their moments and score. So I picked a draw optimistically for the Battery, but it wouldn't shock me to see the result go against them.
Yeah, I also picked a draw for this one, not because I think Charleston Battery are going to be overwhelmingly decent. I just think maybe Vegas on the road, young kids, maybe there's some rotation. I'm hedging some bets, and I was thinking Lights, and then I was like, no, I'm going to pick Lights, and they're going to lose or draw, so I'm going to stick with a draw.
Yeah, Lights for me. I'm down on Charleston right now, and I'm on Team Chaos with Vegas. So
I also picked Lights for that exact reason. Next up, we have Detroit City versus Area Code.
I'm going to go with Detroit in getting this one. I think they can get a result at home, and just that second half performance against Pittsburgh showed that they're playing a bit better, so I picked them to win.
Yeah, I also picked Detroit City. I think I've made the mistake of not buying into them, especially at home. I think they use that, maybe a second half adjustment like last time. They play well at home. So I picked Detroit.
Yeah, going against the grain here, I believe in Memphis in this one. I think this Memphis team might be for real, and this is going to be a good chance for them to prove it.
I also went with Area Code. Yeah, I think they're a really good squad. And Detroit City, I mean, they looked really, really good. But there's just something about this 901 team that I weirdly believe in, which hurts me in every single fiber of my being.
Detroit also spent the first half of both of these last 2 games getting played off the pitch, so I think we shouldn't underrate that.
True. After this, we have United versus Hartford.
Draw, I think it's probably the most fair result here.
I wanted to pick Atlanta 2, and then I was like, if I'm picking Atlanta 2, that means they're not going to win. So I'm picking against myself and picking Hartford.
You're really going full on picking against you, aren't you?
And going with my gut instinct and kind of, and how they're playing and how I think it will pan out is not panning out. So I think this week I'm going the chaos route internally versus externally.
Yeah, this one gets my Monterey, Oakland Memorial. I don't care of the week, but I'm going to go with a draw, I think.
I picked United. I know they just won against, or they basically won. They drew against Tampa Bay, but that might be one of the most unconvincing draws I've seen ever. That was rough.
So, John, if you do that and you get it, and it is a boring match, you should get bonus points. And then if it ends up being a thriller, I think it should be, or the other way around, right? You pick it like this is boring, and if it's a thriller, you get bonus points for jinxing it into a thriller. I think there's some points thing here. I think we can work out.
This sounds right to me. Yeah, I think I'm calling that my lock, is that it'll be boring.
Careful, I had a boring lock last week.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the trademark Miami versus Switchbacks.
I picked Switchbacks in my lock of the week this week. I think they continue their good run of form and pick up a result down in Miami.
I'm also going to roll the dice with Colorado Springs Switchbacks. This is going to be my lock for the week, so I'm living a little bit dangerously. Miami hasn't been that. They've been fine, but I don't think they've been the team that I want them to be right now. And Colorado Springs is kind of the team I want them to be right now as far as like getting results. So I'm going to go Colorado Springs.
Yeah, Colorado Springs for everything that Alan just laid out.
Same with Colorado Springs, which means Miami's going to win.
Yeah, the unanimity of this means that we are doomed.
Social media person for Miami, when you inevitably watch this, hey. Next up is our favorite team right now, Tulsa versus Baby Bulls.
I'm going to pick Tulsa, and I don't think they'll let me down, but don't let me down, guys.
Draw.
I went Tulsa, and I called this my lock. They'll be getting some guys back from international duty. They looked really quite good, even though they lost against Sacramento. I just believe in this team.
Tulsa, knowing that all of us either pick Tulsa to pick up points now means they're definitely going to lose, and the curse of the USL show reigns on. If they somehow lose this, I am going to lose it. We got Legion versus Lou City.
Sorry, Kaylor. I think Louisville gets the result.
Yeah, I almost made this my lock, but I felt that doing that would hurt Kaylor's feelings too much. So I decided to take Lou City, but not make it my lock.
Thank you.
Louisville comes out hungry after that Indy draw, and they get the win.
I picked Lou City to win, and I also almost made it my lock. I love Legion. They need to show me that they can do it. They have the talent. Let's see. Let's see it really go out there and play the dang thing. Sneaky, probably going to be at least the game of the week for me, is San Antonio versus Phoenix.
I picked Phoenix to get a result on the road. They have two poor losses, but I think they can try and turn around some of their form here and possibly get a shock result away.
I'm gonna pick San Antonio because again, my gut was like Phoenix is gonna figure it out, and I was like, no, San Antonio's gonna shock them. But then I was like, oh, but then Phoenix. But again, chaos, San Antonio.
Yeah, I went with a draw here. I think that Phoenix is going to put San Antonio to the irons a little bit in their own half where they've struggled to defend. But San Antonio gets out so well in transition, and Phoenix can't play defense right now.
I picked San Antonio. My head tells me that should be a draw, but I don't know. This is one of those situations where I'm not believing in, just like Legion, where I'm not going to believe in them until they do it, which is going to be really ironic for our next pick, which is going to be Loyal versus El Paso.
I'd really be interested to hear Phil's thoughts on this game and wish he was on to share them, but I backed San Diego for this one.
This one's tough because El Paso is clearly winning the XG Cup right now. They're just, I think, not putting the ball in the back of the net. So this one like has a little bit of like a trap game. It's like on a weird Sunday afternoon, which are oddly warm in San Diego from time to time. But I have faith in a home crowd and a home team that's been pretty successful at home against some pretty tough opponents. And I'm going to say San Diego extends El Paso's losing streak, unfortunately.
Yeah, I went draw here. Every bone in my body is telling me San Diego, but you just got to figure that El Paso half figures it out at some point. So that's my logic there.
Ryan put it into our private chat, but I was going to say the same thing. Right now, El Paso is winning the Brighton World Cup champions of XG. Yeah, it's not great. This one is my lock of the week. I'm taking El Paso. I know a brave move making this the lock, and it's dangerous, but it's so hard for me to see this El Paso team lose or go winless for the first 4 matches. And maybe I'm just voting with, like history, but it's so hard to see 4 straight losses. I have a feeling that this is either going to be a really great game where El Paso pulls off the shocking victory, or Yuma goes, studs to the chin on somebody and gets a red card in the 5th minute. So it could go either way. Sorry, Alan. I hope that doesn't happen. I'm hoping for the former. Both are bad for you, actually. Whatever. Let's go to League One. We're going to go Richmond versus Tucson.
I picked a draw for this one. I think the cross-country start is going to make it a little bit difficult for Tucson, and both teams with starting their season might make it a slow beginning out of the gates. So I'll take a draw for this result.
I picked the Kickers because of the retro kits.
Yeah, I went draw as well. I don't see either of these teams maybe as a contender in League One this year. That sort of informs my opinion in this one being pretty even.
Sorry, Andy. I went with Richmond here. I really like what they've done. They've built on top of a pretty decent squad, and they've added some pieces along the way. I like this team. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me. Let's see, who was next? Greenville. Wow, I just had a stroke. Greenville versus Fuego.
In the past 3 seasons for League One, Greenville Triumph has not lost their home opener and has seen that game scored at least 3 goals from both teams. So I think this could be a really high-scoring game, but I picked Greenville to continue that streak of not losing their home opener. And we'll get a win here.
Brew loves that stat, by the way, Ryan. That made him feel good about his picks. I think I'm continuing on me. Anytime I'm picking for the first time on a host soccer team, I pick the host soccer team. So I'm going to go with Greenville.
Well, I didn't consider that, so I guess I'm declaring war on Gio a little bit. But I'm going with Fresno here, and I think I adore Valianbiev in Fresno. I think he's going to maybe be the Golden Boot winner in League One this year, so that's kind of leaning me that way.
I'm sorry, I just got the update that Peru just beat Paraguay. So Peru's is the final team to go through for them. So that's in their region. That's pretty cool.
You almost went with Peru is through, and I was like, nailed it. And then
I didn't think about it. I really ruined it. I don't deserve to make a pick anymore. Just go ahead and chalk that down at 0 points for me. I'm going with Greenville. With Fuego, this is the awful thing about expansion teams, but you have a team with Greenville who's been playing together for 3 years. You know, that core is all there. And I know that Fuego has talent galore, but they haven't played together yet, except for, well, they did play Sacramento where they got into a fight where that was pretty cool, I guess. But they haven't had real playing time together yet. So I'm taking Greenville for that. And then last one is Tormenta versus North Carolina FC. Are they not through yet?
Yeah, Peru has to go through the Interconfederation playoff against the winner from Asia, and then CONCACAF's fourth place goes and plays the Oceania team, which is hopefully the Solomon Islands. But for not to get sidetracked, sorry about that, Kaylor. I'm taking Tormenta with this one. I think NCFC is going to struggle again this year like they did last season, and I'm backing Tormenta to win at home.
I'm afraid of their mascot, so I'm picking Tormenta.
Bold as
I think
scary.
I think NC is a little bit thin, and I love the Keziah Sterling pickup for Tormenta, a Tottenham guy at one point in his life. He could be big for them, so that's my pick.
I also picked Tormenta, which means North Carolina is going to win. I like what Tormenta has done. They really impressed me, even though they've sold a lot of players. They still have a lot of talent. The one thing with North Carolina, I mean, Holiday, their goalkeeper, is the real freaking deal. He is ridiculous, and shameless fandom. Jaden Cervania's there now, so I believe in that. I believe in Jaden, but not that much. Tormenta, I think, is going to come away with this one, which again, that means that North Carolina is definitely going to win this match, matching their total wins from last year. So congratulations, North Carolina. That's all of our picks for this week. I think that's about all we had planned for this week. So, John, what you got for the people?
Well, as I usually tie it into hockey, my Yotes finally were mathematically eliminated from the playoffs last night, and they are on the march for the number 1 pick. So I'm getting excited.
Great. Alan.
I have finished my Halo playthrough, so now I am in search of another game. I've been messing around with Star Wars Battlefield, whatever that is, 2. Seems somewhat interesting because I love Star Wars video games as well, but I'm in search for another like good classic replay to get started. Maybe an Elder Scrolls, maybe Mass Effect. So if anyone has a suggestion on a playthrough again, maybe Dragon Age, I am open to it. Just not Football Manager. I dabbled, and I'm like, that is a road that I know that I would like lose myself into. So
fair enough. Ron?
I guess to hit on the other sport, I'm just preparing for the state of North Carolina to everyone to sit down and watch the Duke UNC game, the semifinal on Saturday, which is arguably going to be the biggest college basketball game in history. So it'll be interesting to watch. I don't have a dog in the fight. I'm just looking for a really good game.
If you're looking for a new series, Alan, Uncharted, solid, or The Witcher. I love The Witcher. I haven't seen the show yet though. This last Saturday, I got a chance to perform the Firebird, the Stravinsky piece, which is like major rep in the orchestra world. You've probably heard the finale. If you're not a music person, you've almost definitely heard the finale. That was an awesome experience. I never thought I'd have a chance to do. So that was sick. 10 out of 10 would do it again. We're playing Saint-Saëns 3, the Oregon Symphony, in like 2.5 weeks, which I'm very stoked about as well. So shout out classical music, I guess. Yeah, that's about all I have for this week. And we have more stuff coming this week. Kit season, episode 3 comes out tomorrow, or is it 4? I've already listened. I think it's 3. Coming out tomorrow. I watched it. Yes, Gio, Fox, and Reagan, and Brett, they're all fired for what they said about the Legion. Go ahead, gave them their 1 week notice. Really good stuff. It's really fun to watch. And then on Thursday, our own Alan is taking over the short show. So that'll be also very, very fun to watch as he talks about the matches ahead and the matches from the day before. And just like Nicholas said, nobody should care about power rankings. This goes to you, John. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and especially you, Nicholas Murray, for coming in with a slam dunk at the end. Thank you for watching the USL show. Cue Alan's beautiful voice.
Thank you for watching another episode of the USL show. This and every episode is brought to you by the Beautiful Game Network. Find podcasts and other written work at bgn.fm. Once again, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you guys again next week.